Welcome back, everybody. Crack open your books. It's time for Next Chapter, Planning Your Retirement Story, the podcast hosted by Stephen Sabo, financial advisor at Executive Financial Group. I'm your co-host, Doug Turnbull, and Stephen and his family, they've been running this firm for a long time. They've got it at just outside of the Pittsburgh area in Butler, Pennsylvania. Get in touch with them at executivefinancialgroup.com or dial them up, 724-283-2806. They've got pages on Facebook, YouTube, some of the other socials, so be sure and get in touch with them. And this podcast has been churning now. Heck, we're on episode 24, Stephen. So there's the whole library of episodes you can check out on the different podcatchers, Apple, Spotify, and also, of course, on executivefinancialgroup.com on the podcast tab. We were looking at some of the analytics for this, Stephen, and I know normally people are like, why would you talk about that? The audience doesn't care. But it's interesting to me, and maybe this is because you have a lot of people that are deep into retirement. The most amount of listens we get are not on Apple or Spotify. They're off of a desktop computer in the web browser. All right. Yeah. I listen to podcasts all the time. I listen on my phone. Sometimes it is on a desktop if I'm at work, but usually it's on my phone and Apple or Spotify or whatever. And here they're just listening right off your webpage. That's pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah. You know what? It is strange, but I feel like our neck of the woods is a little bit slower to catch up on everything, especially technology. Our clientele are typically, I don't know. I love our clientele, but they're a little bit more blue collar. They're not as technologically advanced, and I think they want it that way purposefully.
Yeah.
So most of the time, like you said, they're probably sitting home at night and clicking to our website. And, I have links and everything like that in my email signatures and certain things that go out to them. So I think it's probably easy for them to click. And I believe that one takes them straight to our website. So that's probably where most of it's coming from. But that's a pretty funny stat there.
We were trying to figure it out because we were seeing like, how is it 0 listens in Apple and Spotify? Oh, that's why. Okay. So, or we think anyway, that's what the numbers tell us there. So hopefully that's not fake news. Hey, by the way, in our past episodes of the most recent two, we talked about springing forward into financial preparation, good time to get your financial house in order. And then we also talked about how annuities are the Florida man of finance, how they have a bad rap, but there are definitely a lot of tools actually within them you can use. So check out, again, those past episodes on, among other places, the podcast tab of executivefinancialgroup.com. Today, we're in the second week of April. April is National Distracted Driving Awareness Month. Now, my previous career, 20 years as a traffic reporter, and I'm still a traffic columnist for the Atlanta paper where I'm based out of. So I've been all up and down on this issue, all right? But it's just a harrowing stat of over 3,300 people in 2023, over 3,200 people, 3,275 were killed in crashes involving distracted driving, whether they were or somebody else in the crash was, all right? But here's the catch with that, and I learned this at a distracted driving forum that I got to help MC recently, all right, is that these numbers are grossly underreported because usually when the crash is over, especially if someone is dead or really hurt, you can't tell what they were doing. Yeah. All right. And so the numbers are probably actually a lot higher, and distracted driving is really right behind or is second only to drunk driving is the causes for people to be killed on the roadways. Now, so I want to use that as first of just a call, because a lot of you out there, we all have our phones to, of course, not be doing distracted driving, Stephen, and make sure that phone is as hands-free as we can possibly get it. But it also, when I think about underreported numbers, I think about what people underaccount for in their retirement. All right. And you deal with retirement cases, hundreds of them, right? So What are two of the big things that you see that people just don't consider?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Thanks for the question. That's great. Two of the biggest things that we see are long-term care planning and taxes. Normally those are two things that nobody really likes to think about, but they're very important in retirement planning. And, one of them, long-term care planning, a lot of people think about it, but it's so overwhelming and it's something that they don't want to have to, it's complicated. They hear it can be expensive and all these different things. So normally what happens is somebody does the easiest thing that they can possibly do and then forget about it until something actually happens and they need it. That's not always the best way to go about it because, unfortunately, again, long-term care can be expensive. Whenever you go into a home or if you have somebody watching over you or caring for you, it can be very, very expensive. And so planning for it up front is very important. But, a lot of the times what we see with long-term care is people will, at least around our area, people will get something in the mail, right, from an attorney that says, come to our seminar and we'll show you how to fix long-term care. And they go to this seminar and the attorney tells everybody in the seminar that they need a trust and that's going to solve all their long-term care problems. And normally that's not the case. In certain circumstances, it can help. But for most people, there are steps after that that need to be taken. You need to move assets to the trust. You need to do all these different things. And most people pay an attorney to get a document and that's it. They don't do any other things. They just want easy. They heard, if you get this trust, it's going to solve all your problems. They pay the money for it, and then that's it. They don't want to think about it anymore. And unfortunately, when you're kind of blinded by that and you aren't thinking about those things, it can cause problems. One, you've spent a lot of money on a trust that might not solve anything for you. And two, when you're actually faced with it, now we have to see about undoing certain things or figuring it out and making sure that you can pay for long-term care. So, that's one of the big ones that we see. And then taxes, that's another one. Nobody likes taxes. Nobody likes to pay them. And, if you can forget about it and put it behind you, most people are going to do that. But, taxes are a big thing. I'll give you an example. We had a gentleman come in the other day. He's a new client. He came in. He's been doing most of his own investing throughout his career, and he's getting ready to retire, though. And he said, I think I might want somebody to take over this and help me out. I want to retire. I don't know all this stuff. And, on one hand, it's a really good problem for him to have because he's done a great job for himself, to be honest with you, investing the money and putting it where it needs to be, but then growing it as well. But it's a double-edged sword because one of the problems that he has is he's got about $500,000 worth of taxes that he hasn't paid yet. And so he wants to create an income. He wants to do all these things, and he's got a tax time bomb on his hand. All that tax has to be, it's coming due one way or another. And so whenever he starts to draw that, income in retirement, we're going to have to deal with the taxes. So it's great that he has the money that he built up. It's great that he was able to grow it as much as he did. But like I said, now he's got about $500,000 tax problem that we have to somehow try and fix for him. And so, that's another thing that people just don't think about in retirement. Most people don't understand tax planning. They understand paying taxes, having them withheld, things like that. But as far as tax planning goes, most people don't think about that in retirement. It is something that they put off. And a lot of what we do in retirement are tax problems, solving tax issues for people in retirement.
So on tax issues, of course, I would think a major issue or maybe it's twofold is one, when you have the qualified accounts that you haven't paid taxes on, just you stuff money in for retirement and then, hey, tax bills due. I've started drawing on them or the required minimum distribution has happened.
That's right.
And then secondly is when there's a major asset that transfers hands, right? When you inherit a house from your dead parents or some, a piece of property from your brother or something like that. I mean, those are the two things, because then you start bumping brackets and you have big bills due. I mean, there's some others I'm not thinking of that people just don't think of, like some, the Pennsylvania honey tax, or I don't know, something.
Yeah, sure. So another good case that came in recently, we had, they were some friends of mine, their grandparents, and they came in, and one of the issues that they wanted to resolve is they have a significant amount of money as well. That necessarily isn't the problem. They have about a 200-acre piece of property that is worth a few $1 million. And so that was their concern. Whenever you pass away, there is Pennsylvania inheritance tax. So you need to pay taxes on that. And then, you can, depending on how big your estate is, you could get into the federal estate tax problem. And so, that is something that they came to us, and we're working on a solution for them. We're going to help them out and work on a solution. But, it's an issue that a lot of people don't think about. Luckily, they started coming around and they said, I think we are going to have an issue, because they're going to have a gas lease soon on their piece of property as well, which is going to generate income. It's going to get them another big chunk of money. not bad things to deal with. But again, there's a big tax problem and all that, most people just don't think about. They don't, until it's too late and they say, okay, now it's time. You owe, $400,000 in PA inheritance tax. We got to liquidate some of this. You got to sell off something in order to be able to pay that. So, dealing with it up front is very important. And that's what we're going to help them do right now.
You said something that stuck with me there. Well, many things, but one thing that I hadn't thought of in particular is you and I have talked about this subject before. If you're having a big tax coming your way, I can't think of too many instances where isn't the result of something good happening. I guess you could have something bad happen that causes you to get a lump sum of money, but the getting the lump sum is good, but then you had to pay taxes. So it's not all bad news there. I will say I got a chance to tape on a game show recently. I was part of a big group of people, so it wasn't all about me or anything. Needless to say, I didn't have to fill out any tax forms. Okay, that's how it went. Okay, that's how it went, though. All right, so it means that I didn't have a good result. Okay, or not the result I wanted anyway. Although the whole experience was a lot of fun. So people are hearing all these intricacies of taxes, or they're hearing just about, wait, long-term care, that's such a strange issue. Like, it's one I can't even visualize, all right? Yep. That's not going to happen to me. I'll be fine. I'll be healthy till I'm 95. Yep. Those are two big things they need to discuss. I'm sure you would recommend with a financial advisor. So if they're hearing this right now, how do they get in touch with you? How do they begin that process?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to our website at executivefinancialgroup.com and fill out a form to get in touch with us. Our contact information is on there, emails, our phone number, 724-283-2806. Give us a call and pick up the phone and say, hey, Stephen, you know what? I've been thinking about these tax issues. I've been thinking about this long-term care problem. What can I do about it? And we'll schedule you and get you in here to sit down and kind of go over all the options with you and say, hey, look, here's what we would suggest in your situation, because this is how you're going to fix the problem that you're faced with. And so, like I said, listen to our podcast. There's a lot of great information on there. Go to our website or pick up the phone and give us a call. We love to talk to you. We'd love to sit down with you and see how we can, help you solve a lot of these issues.
Yeah, well, for sure. You've got to take steps. It doesn't just happen by itself.
That's right.
That's one thing that I keep getting blown away by as an adult. Even though I'm more than 20 years into adulthood, okay, I still am like, I just thought adults had it all figured out. And there was this button to click. Nope, they're still trying to plan and go right through stuff just like I was when I was in high school or college. Okay, so dial up Stephen and the team at Executive Financial Group, 724-283-2806, or go to executivefinancialgroup.com. And again, check out other content of theirs. If you're just trying to date with them a little bit, you're not sure if you want to make that plunge, you can go on YouTube and Facebook. And like I said, past episodes of this podcast on Apple, Spotify, some of the other podcatchers, and the podcast tab at executivefinancialgroup.com. Well, Stephen, I know we're both in the middle of a busy spring here, lots of travel, lots of life events going on, things like that. So thanks for setting some time aside for us to talk about this in midst of all the appointments you have as people keep coming to Executive Financial Group. It just shares to me the urgency of people getting on your calendar right now and not saying I'll do it later, because that calendar's filling up.
That's right. Yeah, no, and thank you, Doug. I really appreciate it.
Someone just called today. Right then, okay? Yeah. I just heard him.
Sorry about that. I forgot to hit the silent button in here.
That's okay. It's funny. But we appreciate you, Stephen, once again, for sure. We also thank our producer, Daniel Salerson, for getting this published and put together, and to all of you for listening here to Next Chapter, Planning Your Retirement Story. I'm Doug. He's Stephen Sabo, financial advisor at Executive Financial Group, and we'll have another episode coming your way here right around the corner.
The opinions expressed by Stephen Sabo and guests on this podcast are their own and do not reflect the opinions of this podcast station. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to subject covered. Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, a registered investment advisor. VCM and Executive Financial Group are independent of each other. Pennsylvania Insurance License number 670429. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract. Stephen Sabo and/or Executive Financial Group are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.